and welcome to The Natural View. I'm Maggie Jacqua. I'm the content director of Whole Foods Magazine, and my co-host today is Todd Polley of 24 Stories Marketing. Hi, Todd. How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you, Maggie?
I'm good, and we have a special guest today. We have Alexis Collins. She's the product manager of Stratum Nutrition, and we're here to talk about healthy aging and emerging science that can help people feel their best. Hi, Alexis.
Hi, how are you guys
Hey,
doing?
Alexis.
We're good.
Hi.
So I just want to talk about healthy aging and kind of how it's evolved, because we used to talk about anti-aging, right? Like we're against it, but now we're really talking about how to stay more vibrant and just live your best life and feel better and happier with every birthday. So just talk to us a little bit about what is healthy aging.
Sure. So I love that, first of all, just the switch from anti-aging to healthy aging. So we know that our lifespans are getting longer in general, but our health spans, even though they have definitely increased, like we are, surviving longer with better health in general, they're not necessarily catching up at the same pace, right? But there's this, very technical definition of healthy aging that the World Health Organization has, which is the process of developing and maintaining functional ability that enables well-being in older age. But in general, I think of healthy aging as just basically being able to independently do what you want to do for as long as possible, comfortably. So if we can talk about, healthy aging from like a mental aspect, from a social aspect, but, we'll stick to the physical aspect here. And really, I just see that as being able to move independently and comfortably for as long as possible. So I think that really just comes into play with how, I'll speak from just the female point of view, obviously, because that's what I'm familiar with. But we're really just pushing things that we want to do. We're doing things that would typically be done at younger ages later and later, right? So women, the age of starting families is moving later and later and later. So it's not unheard of to be, 40 and starting your family. It's still not, the normal average, but it's not as rare as it was even 10 years ago, right? So, talking about healthy aging, well, here we have, women who are starting families almost, a decade later than what it was, before. And we're going to have to lift little people. We're going to have to run after little people. We want to stay healthy so that we can be around for those little people when they're graduating college. We want to be able to see that. So there's, this aspect of just staying, as young as you can physically. And I'm not saying that from an aesthetic point of view, because whatever with that, but just being able to, move your body comfortably, to live in your body comfortably for as long as possible. And I think that women in particular have some challenges with that. Not to say that men don't either, Todd, but, it's just
They do.
They do. I know. But just really being able to maintain that that comfort physically, I think, is just vital for healthy aging. And there's some just really cool examples too of just, I was just, I'm totally crazy for the Olympics, right? So
Me too.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm like, just minorly obsessed, especially since they've like introduced climbing. So I'm just like, because that's a sport that I love. Yes. So looking at just the Olympians that are going to be, participating this year on Team USA alone, we've got Sue Bird on the basketball team at 40. We've got Carly Lloyd on the soccer team at 39. So, this isn't, as old as I think we're kind of programmed to think, 40s are. It's still an extremely active decade in women and men's lives. And I think we're only making our 40s more active. So we're basically trying to keep this active lifestyle, not, like I said, for aesthetics, but because exercise is a huge component to healthy aging, right? Like, you got to use it or lose it. And it's absolutely true. So forget about, the weight loss and the, measuring tape around the waist aspect of exercise, because, I'm not going to get into that.
We're done with that.
Yeah. But just the mental aspect of exercise. Just being able to get that endorphin rush from moving your body, from sweating a little bit, is so healthy for you. Playing sports and socializing while playing sports, so healthy for you. And as soon as, I mean, like I'm not even in my upper 40s and I've got hip pain on my left side and I've got knee pain in my left knee, thanks to running a marathon in college, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that too. I think that's because, I'm in the same range too. And you start to feel these twinges, but like you're saying, we know that physical activity is so key as we age to being vital, but it's hard, and it's an issue for women. It's an issue for men too. But so why is this, and what can we do? Help us out. Help me out. I'm feeling it.
Exactly. So it's like, it's this cycle, right? Where you're like, okay, I know I need to exercise. And yeah, most of us are probably like, well, I'm doing it to lose weight, right? But we know we need to exercise to be healthy. Okay. Never mind that really, like, you're doing the most benefit for yourself mentally when you're exercising, right? So I need exercise. Okay, I'm going to make this time. I'm going to make this plan. We're busy. We've got all this stuff going on in our lives, full-time job, the family. Then we get on the bike or we go out for that jog, and a minute into it, your hip is killing you or your knee is. How defeating is that, right?
Yeah. So, terrible.
It's very defeating. It's very defeating. And, there was this interesting study that was done in Canada. It was a survey. And it was in 2014, I believe. And it was 13,000 people. And they looked at individuals who had been exercising at the start of the survey who had stopped. And for women in particular, the women who had stopped, this did not apply to men who, I'm not going to generalize, but, maybe they just kind of like push through it more. But pain was one of the top 3 deterrents for women to stop exercising. So that's just, we're probably just more like, hey, I'm out, versus like, yeah, no pain, no gain. It's like, look, like this was hard enough to like start this whole exercise routine. Like, I'm just not going to, ouch, like, maybe another day. Right.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'll speak from the top range of the 40s. I mean, I think like the bear, like I'm tipping over the edge here in, a matter of a year. And I know a lot of people who exercise, and they're around my age or older, and everyone has some sort of like, my knee, my hip, whatever it is. And it's just kind of like you said, I think people power through it sometimes or they don't. But what's really causing that pain in your joints? What's the root of that?
Exactly. So when we're talking about exercise-induced joint pain, we're talking about your cartilage breaking down.
Okay.
And, that can be, wear and tear, but there are actually other mechanisms at play with that cartilage breakdown. We've seen some links to a biomarker of cartilage breakdown called CTX-II and estrogen levels in women in particular. So I was going to say, I can kind of jump into the whole CTX-II thing. So we're talking about, exercise-induced joint pain. Basically, like, this is a huge deterrent for exercise, which is a main component of healthy aging. So if you want to be aging healthy, you have to keep exercising. Pain is a huge deterrent. And what is causing that pain is, cartilage breakdown in your joints. So just think of that nice fluffy couch that you sat on in the showroom floor and you're like, this is beautiful. And then you go to that couch that has been retired to your basement in the corner and you sit on that and you feel like every beam, like
you're saying that's our knees and hips?
Yes.
Oh,
so,
such a great depressing analogy.
You're an old couch, John.
I know, you see that, you see that like 19-year-old just go like running by and you're like, it must
be recovered
when those knees are literally like the cartilage just bouncing you up. Like I can just like envision it, like those cushiony, joints just absorbing everything and you're just like running on it. And then, there's also like, you could look at the tennis shoe analogy, right? Like when you put on that nice new pair of tennis shoes and you feel like you're defying gravity because they're so bouncy and springy. Yeah. And then you put on your old ones, like to do some yard work and you're like, how did my feet ever survive in these shoes? So yes.
How do we know that? Like, how do we know that that's happening to us?
Yes, exactly. How do you know that your cartilage in your joints is breaking down before it becomes painful? And the truth of the matter is that you don't. At this point, we basically wait for the pain to set in. So, you can go to the doctor and you can get your blood drawn and they'll say, oh, your LDL is high. You better start looking after your heart health a bit more. But we don't really have that diagnosis for joint deterioration yet. But there is actually a biomarker that is indicative of cartilage breakdown, and that's CTX-II. And CTX-II is basically a breakdown component of type 2 collagen. So your joints have type 2 collagen in them in the cartilage. And when they start breaking down, there's this peptide of type 2 collagen that's released, and you can measure it in the urine or the blood very easily. And that's basically what Stratum Nutrition built their patented research on our ingredient, natural eggshell membrane, NEM. We built our patented research around measuring CTX-II as a biomarker of cartilage degradation. And CTX-II, it can be, you're looking at elevated levels it can be very normal to have elevated levels of CTX-II if you're a child per se. So you're growing. Children have constant turnover, right? Like their cartilage is breaking down and it's regrowing bigger, and it's breaking down and it's growing bigger. So they're going to have elevated CTX-II. And that's fine because they're rebuilding. A college age athlete, we talked about that springy joint, 19-year-old running down the track. They're going to have elevated CTX-II as well, but they are still young enough to be rebuilding their cartilage. So that's totally fine. But then there's instances where CTX-II is high and it's not so great. And those situations are osteoarthritis. So that's, chronic joint pain right there with osteoarthritis. Obesity, individuals who are obese have significantly elevated CTX-II levels because they have that increased pressure on their joints. And then postmenopausal women. So when you look at women of the same age, but one of those women has not gone through menopause and the other one has, the CTX-II levels are significantly different. So you have this inverse relationship between estrogen levels and CTX-II. As our estrogen declines, our CTX-II is going up. So even if you're not, really like hitting that CrossFit gym hard, your cartilage is going to degrade as you get closer and closer to menopause. And we're not talking an old age here. We're talking about menopause onset at 47 on average. Okay. So I know plenty of women, who intend to keep exercising through their 40s and through their 50s and through their 60s and onwards. So this is just kind of this is just really something that when Dr. Ruff, was educating me just on the research that he had done and designed, this study on postmenopausal women that we have with NEM around CTX-II, it was just kind of mind blowing to me because I read these things and I'm like, how does not every woman get, told about this? It's just
right. You don't hear about this.
Yeah, it's like, I was just like, wow, this is very, very important information, I feel like, and it's just not really out there right now. So,
well, let's talk a little bit more about the research, because one of the things that, I've talked about this before on this podcast, but, the branded ingredients like Stratum's NEM, you guys put in the research and you put in the science to really support these products or these ingredients so that, a product that contains them, is delivering these actionable benefits. And, Stratum is very focused. You've done 16 research studies, including 4 randomized placebo-controlled trials and more. So talk to us about, this recent research and the patented clinical trial and what was found through that.
Sure. So I'll speak to it. I am not the expert, because we're talking about natural eggshell membrane
Nicely
here.
done.
The expert is Dr. Ruff, and I can always pull him out of his his research cave to really get in depth on this stuff. But I'm happy to talk about it because I'm a science nerd as well. But basically what we did was we did this 2-week RCT trial on women, an average age of 56. Okay, so these are postmenopausal women, and they did not have joint pain, and they were not exercising. They were not obese, but they were not, they were average weight. So they're indicative of basically the general population, because most people we know, hey, not exercising, not feeling the joint pain, and basic overweight, kind of average weight. So these women were given this new exercise regime to start with this aerobic step. So it's this aerobic step regimen every other day, right? And we measured their CTX-II, which you can easily measure through urine or blood. And we basically monitored their recovery pain as well, their joint pain, upon starting this new exercise program. And what was really cool in this clinical trial was that when you looked at the baseline CTX-II levels in these women compared to, sorry, let me backtrack. So these women were given 500 milligrams of NEM and it was placebo controlled, so versus placebo, sorry. So the women who were taking NEM, starting this new exercise program, they're starting to do their steps and all that, they ended up having lower CTX-II levels after this study than when they started. So their baseline CTX-II levels were actually higher before exercising than they were after. So NEM basically took them. Yeah. So that's really just indicative of the chondroprotective benefits of this ingredient. So it's really supportive of your joints. And that was just a really cool finding of that study. We're just talking about 2 weeks. Okay. So we're not even, I mean, that's pretty quick. And these results were seen as quickly as 1 week, when we were measuring the CTX-II. And then recovery pain after exercise was also significantly improved. So again, just kind of like backtracking to the whole root of this, healthy aging, women want to stay active longer in life, and pain is a huge deterrent. That pain comes from your joints degrading, your cartilage degrading, which is what CTX-II is indicative of. And NEM basically improved the CTX-II levels, even with exercise on top of it, which you would expect your CTX-II levels to rise once you start, getting active on those knees. And NEM actually took it below where those women started, even though they were starting a step exercise program. And they felt they recovered better. So their recovery pain was lessened as well. So
yeah, that's amazing. Any feedback from the participants and any other sort of study benefits that came out of that?
Sure. So that was one study. That was the postmenopausal women study that was just on postmenopausal women, and that is published. But we have a confidential study that we have not published because there's a couple of copycats out there, so we're being a little bit more careful with our research. But the second study that we conducted was basically the same design. And that had even more impressive results. It was in postmenopausal women and men. So it was a male and female study. And we had such great results with that we were able to get some really strong claims from Health Canada, basically saying that NEM helps reduce joint pain associated with moderate intensity exercise in as little as 1 day. So that's really strong. So we were super happy about that. And Dr. Ruff really gets all the credit for, designing these studies in healthy populations. That's another thing just to really stress, on NEM, like Dr. Ruff knows what we need to be able to make strong claims in the US and in Canada. So these are healthy population studies. It is exercise-induced joint pain that we're talking about here, not disease-induced. And we're seeing fantastic results. So the FDA really, that's really what they require, right, guys, for claims to be made in the strongest way possible. So it's just fantastic that he was able to design this research with such a cool biomarker too. And just be able to, really support strong claims being made on NEM for that.
So I think that's interesting because you've talked about the healthy women, you've talked about the postmenopausal and the men, and also for younger demographics, which I know is key as experts are talking about how, the joint health category was already huge, right?
Yeah.
And now it's beginning to trend downward in age, and consumers are seeking out these products younger as younger demographics are being more careful about protecting their health long term. So what do you see on the horizon here?
Yeah, so exactly. So joint pain, I think typically has always been seen as, a senior health category. It's grandma and grandpa need to worry about joint pain and I don't. But again, it's kind of like what we started talking to, where we're all trying to be more active. We're trying to be as active as possible. So, as far as going forward and the appeal of, ingredients that will help support comfortable movement and exercise recovery, like that's really where I see, NEM going. Like we think joint pain, I think it's still kind of centered around like, oh, the group that's going to be suffering from like, osteoarthritis and other arthritis issues, and that's not me. But if we think about these ingredients like NEM for, being an absolute necessary component in sports nutrition for the 40 plus demographic, then it makes sense, because here you have, especially for women, it makes sense for men too, but especially for women 40 plus who want to keep exercising, we have to have something in our sports nutrition supplement or our supplement regime that's supporting our joints specifically, because we know that, average age of 47, basically like our cartilage is going to start to degrade. And if we feel pain, we are not going to keep exercising. We just aren't.
Yeah.
So it's
especially since a lot of those participants won't know until they do feel joint pain, right? So it seems like a huge opportunity for formulators.
Yeah. So I really see, NEM like going for like the younger demographics as just a keep moving kind of message. Mm-hmm. So, the average like 19-year-old's probably not going to really be looking for it. But I mean, even in your 30s, like I'm late 30s, and it's, there is pain if I'm not taking my NEM. I'll just be totally upfront with you guys. Like I am a supplement user, but I'm like a very like, sometimes I'm like all about it and I've got my pills like all lined up. Right. And then I'll get lazy and the regime will just, go to the wayside, and I feel it. And I'll be reaching for, the ibuprofen, which is not the best option for me. And I know that from like doing nutrition genome testing, but I'll be reaching for that. And then it's like, duh. So it's like, I kind of have like my moment, and then I get like back on track. So, and it was just, and that reminds me, like I read this really cool article. I forget the name. It was the triathlon coach. There's a Team USA triathlon coach or certified triathlon coach named Marnie. I'm going to get her name wrong. Lumball, I believe. But she just wrote this really cool article. And she was saying, because she basically has coached all of these women who are in their, 50s to 70s through Ironman competitions and, triathlons, all that. And which to me, it's like, I can't even fathom myself doing that. Right.
I know, they're amazing.
But she coaches these women. And she even said in this article where she was like, you really do have to take particular care when you're coaching and designing, the regimen for older female athletes. And you have to understand that NSAIDs can deplete iron, and they can actually cause some kidney problems with older women. So, and I'm saying older as in like, 50 plus here. So, again, like we say older, but it's like, we're not feeling older then. Right. So, that's just another thing. It's sort of like, you kind of have that like Band-Aid, but I don't think a lot of women who are looking to improve their health are wanting to use that OTC Band-Aid every day when they want to be healthy. So we're looking for, a more natural alternative that is effective.
Yeah.
Quick.
And so like and the benefits kicking in so quickly too is
Exactly.
Well, so one other question about formulation. We've talked a lot about it as a standalone ingredient. Tell us a little bit about, if you look at sports nutrition or other categories, combining that with other ingredients, is that an opportunity that is open to people that you guys help out with, that you have some science behind?
Absolutely. So a really exciting area, if we're talking about sports nutrition, is, there was that research that came out showing, I believe it was 3 grams of DHA, EPA combined, like omegas, like it has to be like those omegas at 3 grams, was extremely effective in reducing DOMS, so that delayed onset muscle soreness, right? Which we all know. I mean, Come January, we all know it because we're like, yeah, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna like do those deadlifts, and then the next day you're like, I can't walk downstairs. So I'm gonna fall. So we all know that, right?
Yeah.
And that was really, that research was compelling, and 3i Solutions was actually able to make a really awesome tasting emulsion of NEM with that high amount of omegas in it. So I basically just call that formulation in January, because I would take it seriously, I'm just like, can you guys send me more samples? Because that's literally like, if I want to go and start a new exercise regimen, I know I need to be taking my NEM, and I know I need to be taking high omegas for that muscle soreness. So you're tackling both with that formulation. You're going after like the joint pain, and you're going after the muscles, and that's smooth sailing, and it's natural and it's great.
Yeah.
Right? That's one formulation that I'm obviously a big fan of. But then there's also this other cool aspect of NEM, where, we have the, not to get too much into like mechanism of action, but we've got this direct activity against pro-inflammatory cytokines, right? And then there's this second mechanism of action, because NEM is partially hydrolyzed, so it's not fully blasted apart. So we're gently hydrolyzing. It's this proprietary process, but gently hydrolyzing the membrane. So you're keeping some larger components in there. There's like glycosaminoglycans in there and some collagen. It's a real mix in that nice soft eggshell membrane that none of us want to eat when we're peeling the hard-boiled egg, right? So because NEM is partially hydrolyzed, it's presenting these similar peptides to what your body would find in cartilage when it's being degraded. It's presenting these similar peptides to your stomach. So it's actually making your body more tolerant. It's an oral tolerance mechanism. It's making your body more tolerant of these little peptides that your body would be, identifying in your joints as foreign when your cartilage is breaking down. And that starts that whole inflammation cascade, because your body's like, what is all of this little, where are all these little peptides floating around in my blood? And this is not something that I've ever seen before, attack. And that's this whole like joint inflammation cascade. So I just think it's really cool that you can have this, joint pain linked to the gut, because everybody's combining everything with the gut. Like we're seeing everything's attached to the gut, right? So first it was just gut health, feeling better in your gut. And then it became, gut and mood. So there's like the gut brain axis. And now there's like research out there on like the gut lung axis, obviously. And so there's actually this gut joint axis, exercise induced pain axis. So I just think that that's really cool. If you're looking for like some sort of, probiotic formulation, NEM actually has, this gut activity. So if you're kind of like a company that kind of centered in that sort of like area, I just think that's kind of cool.
That is cool. Yeah.
So nerding out a little bit on that.
No, I
we
think
love
that's
it.
awesome.
We love nerding out around here. It's our favorite thing to do.
Yeah, totally. And I'd say we've done a fair amount of it, and it's all good. Can you kind of sum up, give us just a couple of key takeaways for people who have listened, and it's like, okay, what do I need to take back to my team? What do I need to talk about in terms of next steps? What do you think?
Sure. Okay. I think just for me, and what I feel really passionate about is I think that sports nutrition products targeted to women 40 plus are just really not out there. This is a demographic that needs more support in that area. And NEM is a great ingredient to include in those formulations because we have the research behind it. You can make very strong claims based on our healthy population research on postmenopausal women. And it's just an effective ingredient that works really easily in all sorts of different formulations because we're talking about a 500 milligram daily dose. And it's a powder and it just works. It mixes well.
That's awesome.
And then I would just say the other, piece to that is with menopausal formulations and, product lines targeted to menopausal women. This might be an area that's overlooked because there's a lot of focus on osteoporosis, and obviously there needs to be, but don't, totally, forget about the CTX-II levels and the inverse relationship with estrogen and how that can also be, causing discomfort and just daily life, not even talking about like really heavy exercise regimens, but just daily life. So that's really, kind of like the takeaway basically for me is just, I think CTX-II is an awesome story. I think more women need to know about it. I think men would benefit greatly knowing about it as well. But just that, unique inverse relationship with estrogen and CTX-II is something that, should be focused on. And we've seen that, focusing on it with our NEM research, we can see some really good results in women who are starting exercise programs when they're taking NEM.
Well, excellent. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground here. Thank you for raising our awareness and helping to educate us. I mean, so many opportunities clearly with this and the need to further educate. We do have some tools on WholeFoodsMagazine.com. We have NEM's retailer toolkit, and that has some information. Some of the science is a little bit older, but there's also some great information in there for retailers. And then on Stratum's website, there's links to these studies. You can gain so much more in their knowledge center. So anybody who wants to take an even deeper dive and read up on some of these studies, that's all available on Stratum's website for you to check out.
Great.
And keep us posted on new studies as they come out, and new developments. And it was great talking to you.
It was really good talking to you.
We learned so much. Thank you.
Good. No, happy to. Anytime.